Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of We Ain't Dying for This, a Black woman's guide to liberation. My name is Crystle Johnson. I am your host. I'm the founder of Design Your Soft Life. And of course, We Ain't Dying for This. I help Black women who are changing the world to save themselves first. If you often listen or watch this live cast, you're probably noticing that my background is a little different. I'm in a hotel, y'all. So happy to still be here with you. I'm visiting my family this weekend, but still wanted to be able to pop in to have this conversation about boundaries as liberation, especially because of all the things that are happening around us right now, specifically with the presidential race and Kamala Harris being the candidate, the proposed candidate. So we wanted to make sure we had this conversation. So happy to be here with Jessica Pharm, who is our guest today, and will give the opportunity to introduce herself in a moment. Wanted to make sure that we're live and people can see us. I do see a couple of comments coming through from Tamara or Tamara and from Missy. If you are listening, if you can let us know where it is that you are watching from. And then also, if there are any Black women that you think might benefit from this conversation, please at her in the comments or share this live with her so then she can pop in with us live. But we're also open to people who watch the replay. So we just feel like there is a lot of information that folks are going to hear in this episode that will be really important to them as they think about protecting their peace, protecting their spirit, especially as we go through this election cycle. Okay, I see Missy saying she's in Atlanta, DC, Dr. Tabitha. Okay, so now we know y'all are here. So We Ain't Dying for This was founded because it is a call to Black women, basically, because we are always taking care of everyone else. We are, as many of you have heard of the term weathering, we are experiencing microaggressions and other behaviors all the time that are causing us to weather within, and it's causing us to have poor health outcomes. And we don't need to die for this. We have other options. And I wanted to be able to feature Black women who are living their lives in a way that they're experiencing liberation in their own way. Liberation is not binary. So it's not either you have it or you don't. There are different ways that people experience their own form of liberation. And of course, today we are talking about boundaries. So happy to see folks dialing in from Georgia, from Texas, from Vancouver. Hey, y'all. So let's go ahead and jump into the conversation. So I want to introduce Jessica Pharm. I'm not going to be introducing Jessica, but I'm going to pass it over to Jessica to tell y'all who she is and what it is that she does.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Again, my name is Jessica Pharm, and I am A lot of things. One, I am the founder of Blackness in the Workplace, and that is a platform where we center the Black experience, the Black voice, especially in the workplace. But that has expanded to both inside and outside the workplace. I am a content creator on LinkedIn. I recognize a lot of the people in the chat who follow me, and my content on LinkedIn very much is we're talking about the Black experience. We're talking about, I give career and job advice because my background is human resources. But everything that I share on LinkedIn, I always share it centering Black women, the Black experience, my experience as a Black woman. And I'm very unapologetic about that. And it's been always important to me to do that. And then over the last maybe year and a half or so, I really started bringing boundaries into that conversation. So how to establish boundaries, what are my boundaries, how do I go about navigating these spaces. And those posts have been very direct. Those posts have gotten a lot of responses, both good, bad, and the other. But I've always tried to be very clear and consistent about who I am, and how I take up space, and understanding that that journey is a journey and that it will evolve and change and move as we get older and as we experience new things. So I'm happy to be here today. I'm happy to be talking with you again. We've both been on each other's podcasts in the past, so we have a great relationship. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you here. And speaking of your posts, last week when I was talking to Sharita Washington, we were talking a lot about your posts as well. I don't know if you caught that episode, but we were both saying how much we love you and love your content, especially when you're like, it's Friday, y'all.
Oh yeah, my Friday memes,
Mm-hmm.
Friday gifts,
Yes.
they are standard now.
I love it. I love it. It's perfect. So if anyone listening isn't already following Jessica, please go ahead and follow. Hit that follow button and follow Jessica. You will be not only amused, but also you will feel seen by a lot of the things that Jessica is posting. So you mentioned in your introduction about evolution. And as we get older, we switch it up and we do different things. When you know better, you do better. Can you tell us a little bit more about your evolution when it comes to your boundaries? Because I know that for me, initially entered into the workplace, especially when I got my first DEI job. We'll talk about DEI jobs. So when I first entered into the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I didn't want to lose my job. So whatever it is that my leader was telling me to do, I'm gonna do.
Right.
You want me to make you feel comfortable? I'm gonna make you feel comfortable. Those
Mm-hmm.
are the things I'm willing to do because I had a fear of losing the thing that I had just been able to grasp. So my ability to set boundaries or even understand what boundaries were are very different then, was very different then than it actually is now. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey when it comes to boundaries?
Yeah, I will say when I first got into the workforce years ago, there were no boundaries. There wasn't even conversations around boundaries and the terms that we use now, psychological safety and all that. None of that existed, or at least I didn't have access to it. And I
Mm.
was a first generation college student, and I was going into spaces that no one before me had ever navigated. So I didn't know what to do. All I understood was what my father would tell me was to make myself more palpable. And so what that meant was I was not wearing braids. I was relaxing my hair, straightening my hair. I was really trying to conform to the ideal of what professionalism was. I did not want to rock the boat. So whenever I was asked to do stuff, whether it was to come in early, work over lunch, stay late, whatever it was, I would do it. And I did it because I thought that if I did my part, that I would be seen and recognized, and that I would be able to get the promotions and be able to move up just like everybody else was doing. When managers were being disrespectful and talking out the side of their neck to me and coworkers, I did not react because I was like, well, I'm the only Black person here. Oftentimes, it was only one or two Black people here. And I was always taught that it's not just about me, it's about, the other Black women that I'm working with are other Black people who may be able to come through this organization. So think higher, right? And so I didn't want to be labeled the angry Black woman. I didn't want no trouble. I didn't want to lose
Mhm.
my career because I worked so hard to get there, even harder than my white counterparts. And that, that's a whole conversation. But like you said, I didn't have any boundaries. And as a result of that, I was always being burnt out. I found myself being very frustrated because I wasn't getting where I wanted to go. I felt like I was not being authentic because I didn't want to put chemicals in my hair to straighten my hair. That wasn't me. That wasn't my aesthetic. I didn't want to, there were certain clothes I didn't want to wear. I didn't want to pretend that the jokes that my white coworkers was talking about was funny because I don't find them funny. Like I just didn't want to do that, but I didn't know how to get to those spaces as a young person who never had anyone before me go through it. I didn't know any Black women who were in corporate spaces. So I just didn't know what to do at the time.
Yeah, it is something
Mhm.
to be first. Um, it's exhilarating and it's inspiring to other people, but it is so much that we go through as
It
the
is
first.
hard.
Yeah, because we're trying to figure out like how do we navigate this space? How do I make sure I don't lose the thing? Like that again, like I know I've said this several times in this conversation just, in the first few minutes,
Mhm.
but the fear of losing the thing because no one else in your family has ever had the thing
Right.
and you're trying to protect the thing at all costs.
And they looking
And
up to you. They're looking
they're
up to
looking.
you because you the first. And so I was the first. And so I had my mother looking at me. My grandmother, she passed away before I graduated college. She was my father's mother. She got married when she was 12 years old.
Well,
And before she was 30, she had 13 children. And she never had more than what really amounted to like a third grade education, if you want to kind of count it that. And so I remember she telling me that she never would have thought anyone in her family would have went to university, let alone a girl, let alone, so there was a lot of baggage that I was taking with me when I went to college. It was a lot of baggage that I was taking with me when I got these jobs. And I was like, if you can look at my LinkedIn profile, you can see how much education I have. You can see all the I was on my grind
yeah,
because I was the first and I needed to prove that I deserved to be here just like these white folks do. And I had to also show up for my parents who were looking for me to do what they couldn't do.
yeah,
So yeah, being a first is not fun.
it is not.
Stressful.
Yes, you are their wildest dreams. And
Hmm.
speaking of that, how did you move from this space of I have to do because I want to make sure that my parents are proud of me, my family is proud that I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to do. I need to prove that I'm supposed to be here. How did you get from there to being able to set boundaries and actually getting into that mindset of I deserve to be here. I've earned the right to be here.
So for a minute there, when things weren't working out for me, I remember thinking that somehow it was my fault. And I couldn't understand, like, how come I'm not getting the promotions? How come I keep running into these issues? And I remember around 2016, there was a hashtag called Black Women at Work, and I use it a lot on my own posts.
Mm,
It was the first time where I saw Black women from all walks of life, all levels of education, talking about the same problems that I was dealing with. So the first revelation for me was realizing that it wasn't me, and it and that this is a systemic issue. I mean, you had Black women who were C-suite lawyers, doctors, talking the same things as I was, and that was for me eye-opening. Another thing that I started to realize was that I was working next to people who did not match me in terms of education and experience. And I've talked about this a lot, where I've always said that Black people are hired based on experience and white people are hired based on potential. And once you
mm,
start to see that, hey, these people are not better than you, they're not smarter than you oftentimes they are only getting promotions and getting opportunities because people are giving them the benefit of the doubt. They're seeing the potential, what have you. That really starts to change your mindset. And so for me, I start realizing, like, hey, I'm the shit. Forgive me for cussing. I don't know if I can or not, but I'm the
you can
shit.
trust I like to cook.
I look at, sometimes I step back and I look at everything that I have done and how far I've come. And this is not me, being, stuck up or whatever. I look back and I say, man, I am a black woman who come from a family who the first woman in my family to go as far as I have. Now I got a master's degree on my own home. I have come far and I have done a lot, and a lot of that for me. I did that not necessarily by myself. No one's an island. A lot of the heavy lifting. And so that switched my mindset. I'm like, no, no, no. I don't have to prove myself no more to anybody. When you stop worrying about what other people think of you, and when you stop wanting to prove something, that makes the whole difference. And as I got older, once I hit 30, it was just, I don't know, it was just like a switch that went off. And I'm like, I don't have to prove myself anymore. Like, I got the receipts. The receipts are there. And I don't have to pull them out and say, okay, this is what I did. This is what I did. I remember doing that when I went to UW Madison. A lot of us had to do that when white folks was talking about how did these kids get here, and you'll have me and other students going down our list saying all the things that we done. I stopped doing that. I don't have to prove nothing. And so with that, boundaries started to be built. I stopped again, stop proving myself to people. Stop pulling out my resume every time someone got something to say, calling me, they can now they say DEI hire, but at the time they was talking about affirmative action, and I stopped worrying about it. Another thing that I started doing was really changing my appearance. I was like, my argument was when it came to going back to wearing my natural hair and my braids, for example, is if you can show up with tattoos on your arm, which are not natural, I can come to work with the hair that grows out my scalp. And it has
Mhm.
nothing, my hair, my size, whatever, has nothing to do with my ability to get the job done. The receipts are already there. And when you start feeling yourself and start, really internalizing that, hey, you are the thing, you made it. Your energy, it changes your energy. It really
It really,
does. And so I start noticing that there were there was a response. It was changed the response in how people would deal with me. I didn't really come off as insecure anymore. I didn't come off as somebody who didn't know who she was. I start coming to work with an afro, clean, like freshly picked out afro, waiting for someone to say something. But I think because of the way I carried myself and how I moved through these spaces, it never happened. And then I started going back to wearing my braids and my bringing back my aesthetic was really important to me. So those are all boundaries that I started establishing even before I started creating content on LinkedIn and start talking what I was talking. But not being afraid of losing anything, because you can't take away what it is that I built. You're afraid, oh, they're gonna take my job. I've been laid off. I've done that. We can move on, but they can't take away all the accomplishments. And when you
mhm.
start realizing that, you find yourself changing and growing and moving through these spaces in a way that really empowers you.
Yeah, and I think what you said is super important about you understanding your own value and you seeing yourself as enough and you seeing yourself as worthy. And if y'all don't hear nothing else throughout this conversation, I know that we always try to get to the outcome first, but there's a lot of internal work that we need to do. Yes, the world is trash. The world is trash. There's a lot of things that are happening around us that are horrible, they're deplorable. And there are things that we need to look in ourselves in the mirror and take accountability for or consider, why is it that I'm showing up in this way? And that's going to get you to the place that Jessica just mentioned, which is being able to walk into rooms and show up authentically, whether that's just your energy and your aura, or being able to wear your hair however you want to wear your hair. Like, that is that internal work that needs to be done in order for you to be able to do those things. And when you do that, people see it, they feel it. And when they feel that, they're like, oh yeah, we can't just toss her around anymore.
Yeah. I would say, like, I'll go back to what I was saying before, is stop justifying why you're in the room. You don't see white people doing that. I've spoken about this so many times. I have worked with people, and I'm like, how did you get here? How did you get here? And yet they want to question how I got here. And I
Yeah.
stopped doing that. I stopped justifying my existence in these spaces and really start owning the fact that no, I'm here. I've earned my place. And every time, for me, whenever I talk to Black folks who work in corporate spaces and they're directors or managers, whatever, believe me when I say they have earned that. There's
Yeah.
no, like, no one's hiring Black people just because they're Black. That's just not how that things work. Every Black person I've ever met is either they're qualified, but more than likely they're overqualified. Because again, we're not hired based on potential. No one's just giving you a chance to run this department. You got to already prove that you can do it. So once you realize that it's
Mhm.
BS, and that a lot of what you see, like I always say, white mediocrity is rampant in corporate America. It is rampant everywhere. And once you understand that, you will understand that you don't have to justify anything.
Correct.
You deserve to
Correct.
be.
Yeah, and you're not an imposter, because I
Not
know
in.
there are a lot of people who feel like they have imposter syndrome. You're not the imposter.
No.
You earned your right to be there. And I think that as we have this very timely conversation again with everything that's going on with Kamala Harris and the way that people have tried to change the meaning of diversity, equity, and inclusion
Mhm,
into didn't earn it.
mhm,
And that's the new way to have the slur against
mhm,
Black people with the hard R.
mhm,
We are experiencing this in a more elevated way than we normally experience it, because as you mentioned, we already have these experiences where people try to question why it is that we're in the
yeah.
spaces that we're
Mhm,
in. But now that we're seeing it play out on a national stage, it's going to get worse. It's
oh, yeah.
going to get much worse. So as we think about Black women who are in the workplace, one, how it is that you set boundaries for yourself, because it is overwhelming. It's overwhelming to not only for yourself feel the need to explain to people why it is that you deserve to be in the room, or even feeling your blood boiling because how dare you question why it is that I'm in this space when I am overqualified to be in this space. But also,
Mhm,
even like as people are reading some of the comments that are on social media that are in reference to Kamala and others, related to them being a DEI hire, for example. How do you set boundaries? How would you recommend that
mhm,
people set boundaries for themselves to keep themselves safe, to protect their spirit, to continue to regulate their nervous systems and not get into a space where they are angry? And maybe
mhm.
you will be angry. I mean, there's room for anger too. But as we talked about before, weathering, you're experiencing weathering because you're listening to all of this information, you're taking it all in. How do we
Right.
protect ourselves from those things?
So a few things. First of all, when they say DEI hire, this is really no different than affirmative action. This is just a new word. So it is important for us to understand this is really the same cycle. It's the same thing. I've been hearing this my whole life. They just use new
Mhm.
words to say the same thing. So this isn't anything new. Um, so and understand that, and understand that this is something that is always going to be ongoing. Another thing that is important to understand is, and I've shared this quote before, is that people are afraid of the lion when the lion recognizes his own strength. And so these attacks are because they are afraid of you realizing your own power and your own worth. Because once you know that, there's nothing that can touch you. And so that's why they come at you and say, well, you don't deserve to be here, or your credentials, and they question you. They're going to question Kamala, that the one, I think she was the Black woman who was voted into the Supreme Court. Forget my name, Katanji, I think her name is. Um,
Yes.
yes, they did the same for her. Even though if you put her record up against the white woman, Amy Conant, whatever her name was, it's not even a comparison. But they know that once Black people get into these spaces, you can't stop us. Once you see black women just getting degrees left and right and moving up and doing, that's what they fear. So understand that is where this is coming from, because they don't want you to realize and recognize your own strength. So for me, knowing that and having that with me, I always, like I said, I always go back to just looking at how far I've come. I've always fortified myself with that. I've also fortified myself with ancestral power. Believe in that however you want, but I do believe in the power of my ancestors. I believe in the power, especially of my female ancestors, because I am here because of them. I am here because of them,
Mm.
and they protect me. And it took me a long time for me to recognize that, but they do protect me. If they didn't protect me, I would not be here. Now, when it comes to dealing with folks in the workplace, I always tell people, you have to fortify yourself, because you can't control what comes out of other people's mouth. I have heard people say some of the most ignorant things throughout my career and throughout my life. And to be black is to know that that is what you're going to deal with. Chris Rock said it best. There's nothing that a white person can ever say to me that would take me off guard. So none of these attacks, all these crazy things that Trump and his people are saying, none of it is new to me. I've heard all of this my whole life, so just understand that you're going to hear that. Now, when it comes to social media, I know some black women have taken themselves off of social media or reduced their social media input. That has not been me. For me, I don't believe in retreat, but I also respect that everyone has their boundaries and their levels of what they can and can't take. And I respect that. And if that's one of your boundaries to say, hey, look, I need to remove myself from, social media, then do it. When it comes to the workplace, that can always be a lot trickier, because these are people that you have to work with. But I'll always say to you, like, if you need to have a conversation with a coworker because they're saying stuff, or they're being foul, you need to have that conversation. There's a way to go about it that protects you, but you need to have that conversation. Never let anyone make you feel uncomfortable to show up to spaces because there's something about you that they don't like. And when it
Mm.
comes to my content journey and all that other stuff, I've had people ask me, Jessica, are you afraid that you may get in trouble because of what you post? Because you out there all the time, you posting, like, are you afraid? And I say no. There, I don't post nothing that I can't defend
Yeah.
at all. At all. I got all kinds of people from my company following me. That's cool. I want you to follow me. I want you to know who I am. I want you to engage. I have no problem with that. But I understand that it not everyone has that space, grace, and that privilege. And so you need to do what's best for you, and show up in a way that protects you in the spaces that you have to show up. Not everybody can go to work and post content or to say what they want to say because they're trying to work and get a check. That's fine. That's your boundary. This is just a job. I work it, I go home. I respect that. So I mean, it really is levels to this, but everyone has to do what's best for them.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because we often hear folks who are like, if you aren't doing X, then you're not being helpful,
Mhm.
or you're not committed, or you don't care about this certain thing if you aren't proceeding in a certain way. But I
Mhm.
love that you spoke about, everyone feels different, feels comfortable with different things. You should do the thing that makes you feel most safe, especially as a Black woman. um, we deal with so many things on a daily basis that whatever it is that makes you feel most safe, that is the thing that you should do. I
Yeah.
never want people to feel like I'm making them do something that they don't feel comfortable doing,
Yeah.
because our ancestors have done enough.
Yeah. Not everyone can
So
be on the
if
front lines, and not
huh?
every black woman has to put on the cape. I always tell black women, sometimes leave the cape in the closet. Not everybody deserves
Yeah.
to be saved. You got to preserve your peace. I get DMs from women all the time on LinkedIn saying, hey, I would love to engage in your content, but I can't because of my job. Or, I want to say this, but I can't. And I feel for them because I've been there. And I respect, where people are. And I understand that not everyone can do what I do. And that's why it's very important for me to show up and speak truth to power about these experiences, because not everybody does it and not everyone can.
Yeah. So how do you get started? If there's someone who's listening, who's wondering how it is that they get started with setting boundaries, what would your suggestions be?
I would say first start looking inward, really, be comfortable, love yourself because that matters. Really appreciate who you are, how far you come, all the things that you've done and will do. That really matters. That sets the foundation of everything. That was something that for me I had to do, and it's still a journey. Like there's no destination in any of this. And I had to realize that, yeah, I've done a lot and I've come far and I every room I walk in is mine to walk in. And if I wasn't meant to be there, I wouldn't be there. Point blank and period. And so that was the first level for me. And then the next level was, okay, how do I want to show up now in these spaces? And show up not just in terms of physically showing up, but how do I want to look when I show up? That for me, it was showing up with my natural hair, showing up with my culture, showing up how I want to show up. And then how do I want people to treat me? And so for me, you treat people always say treat people how you want to be treated. There is some truth to that. But then how do you correct people when they step out of line? And I've had that happen where people talk to me crazy out the side of their neck or disrespectfully. And the old Jessica would have just said, okay, let this go. I don't want to be seen as the old angry black woman. Now this Jessica's like, I really don't care how you see me. I
Yeah.
have the right to my emotions, whether that's happiness, sad, anger, whatever. And if you see me only as an angry black woman, that's really on you. That's not my problem. That's for you to unpack. And so that's another level of boundaries that I had to set, is not worrying about other people's feelings towards me when I start to enforce boundaries. And so now I don't work past 4 o'clock on Fridays. I don't put myself out there like that. There's boundaries in terms of how I show up. You're not going to take all my time. You're not going to talk to me in a kind of way. I'm not going to sit here and explain myself or why I'm in these spaces with you. It's just it takes time, but all of those things have made me be actually a better employee, more productive. I'm
Yeah.
much more happier personally. I've had a lot more success, just personally and professionally, just by setting how I move through the world, and it has made life a lot easier.
Yeah, of course. When you do that, you realize that you're in control.
Right.
When you allow, when you're like stressed and overwhelmed and all the things, you are in the mindset that the things outside of you are what is controlling everything. But when you realize that you're the one that's in control, you get to decide that you have options. You are definitely a lot more calm. You are definitely just a lot more in tune with yourself, and you're able to show up that feels more authentic to you for sure.
Yeah. I also noticed too over the years that a lot of the reason why I got so much like backlash and like a lot of it was that people, they see your potential. They're seeing what you're doing. They're seeing that you're going to school, you're doing this, you're doing that, and they're threatened by that. And it took me a long time to realize that was one of the reasons why I was encountering so much resilience, so much crap. It's like because these people see your potential. What they don't want is for you to see the potential. Because once you start
Yeah.
seeing your potential and start realizing your own strength, it goes back to the lion recognizing their own strength. That's the power, and that power allows you to walk how you want to walk and go where you want to go, and that's where those boundaries come from. So I always tell people it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, but that really is the root of it. Is I realized I was working next to coworkers, especially I work in HR, so I was working with like white women, for example, who didn't have the same level of education that I had, who didn't have the same level of ambition, and they knew it, and they didn't like it. They saw me, but at the time I was too
Mhm.
naive to realize. I thought it was me. I was like, "Oh man, like what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? Okay, maybe I need to, you know, go back to school, or maybe I need to do something else." And when I realized that, oh, this isn't this is not my problem. This is their problem. I started to step back.
Yeah, for sure. It's not yours to keep.
Mm-hmm.
And that is definitely something that I have learned over the last couple of years, is that the way that people feel, the way that people see me, the things that people say, or just their pushback and challenge to me setting boundaries, is that's theirs to keep. I don't need to worry about how it is that you feel when I'm trying to protect my spirit or protect my heart. Um, you need to worry about that. Like you said before, you need to unpack that yourself.
Yep.
So I hope that everyone who has been listening in really just takes away that you are in control. You have options. We often feel like we don't have options. And setting boundaries is for you. It's for you.
It makes life a lot
But
easier.
Jessica, I've really enjoyed this. Yeah, it definitely does. It definitely does. And trust me, one of the things that I learned from a coach of mine, and I'll never forget it. She said, "You teach people how to treat you."
Oh yeah,
And when you teach people how to treat you, you are so much lighter, so much more joyous, so much more happy, and you're able to make the decision of, does this person need to be in my life or not?
absolutely, absolutely. You
Because
you
it's your
you treat
world.
Yeah, you teach people how to treat you. So when you stand up for yourself, and when you correct people when they're coming at you sideways, whatever your boundaries are. I know one of my boundaries I have, and I've talked about this before. I don't let people I don't know nickname me. When I was younger in the workplace, people used to call me Jessie or Jess, kind of like that. And the culture that I grew up in, you don't informally call someone a nickname that black people, you don't call black people nicknames. If I just met you, I don't know you, you're not my friend. And so I remember I told one of my coworkers, I said, no, my name is Jessica. It's not Jess, Jay, Jesse. Mm-mm. We're coworkers. And I've had conversations with people where I've been very clear, like, this is who you are, and this is how you fall in my life. And some people don't like that. But for me, again, the culture that I come from, being direct and being transparent and being honest with people is a sign of respect. And one of the challenges that I had was that when you go into spaces like corporate America, which is run on white professionalism, that is not something that was valued, because people don't say what they mean and mean what they say in these spaces. And that was always a source of conflict, because that was just not the culture that I came from. People would say to you, you had white women saying, oh, you look so nice today. And I'm like, no, she doesn't. Why are you saying that? Because they're believing in being nice, and their ideal of nice is not being honest. And that was always something that never set right in my spirit. And so now another boundary is, I believe in being truthful. I believe in being transparent, and I come at that treating you as an adult, like hoping you understand that that's where I'm coming from, as a sign of respect, to be direct with someone and to be honest with someone, as opposed to these games that people like to play. Because I'm just like, I'm done with that. I can't do that. So
That part, clear as mud.
yep.
That's the motto.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed this conversation with you. As you already noticed, there's a lot of comments going on in the chat, with people agreeing with how it is that you have talked about boundaries in your own life, as well as sharing more details about how people can begin to set their own boundaries. For those who are listening in, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it so much. We do hope that the commentary and the conversation that we had tonight is helpful to you as you are going through this season. We know what season it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening. So we take the time that you need, do the things that make you feel like you are protecting yourself and keeping yourself safe. Don't feel obligated to do more than you need to do. Set those boundaries. And we will talk to y'all again soon next week. Next week, actually, we are talking about love and healing with Fatima Mann. And actually, we are going to be live in studio. We'll probably have a few people who may join us live in Austin, actually, for that episode. But again, we'll be talking about love and healing with Fatima Mann next Thursday on August 1st. So, again, thank you so much for everyone who is here, who's listening live, who will be listening to the replay. Follow Jessica. Jessica has incredible content. And again, she'll make you laugh, but she'll also make you feel seen. But that's all tonight. We'll see you again soon.
Thank
Bye.
you for having me.